The pace of innovation in generative AI, we'll just call it AI, is relentless. OpenAI, Google DeepMind, Anthropic, Mistral, and Meta are in the arms race, shipping increasingly powerful foundation models with near monthly cadence. But building with AI is one thing, operationalizing it at scale is another. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Analytics Insight podcast, where we talk about the ever evolving tech space. And I'm your host, Priya Dialani. Now, a lot of leaders are tasked with ensuring that AI works reliably, adapts rapidly, and remains compliant, as well as cost effective across fast moving environments. As foundational models evolve and AI driven features touch more surfaces, enterprise need more than model APIs. They need a scalable operational strategy. Let's welcome Shashank Sharma, Global Head of Intelligent Operations, AI and Automation at Brandtech Plus, to understand the shift of Gen AI to Gen Ops and how AI and automation is powering end-to-end business operations. Hi, Shashank. A very warm welcome to our podcast today.
Thank you so much, Priya, for having me here.
Great. It's a pleasure to have you with us today, Shashank. And of course, I think this seems a very interesting discussion today when talking about Gen AI to Gen Ops. And I think our listeners and audience today would definitely gain some more real world insights of what exactly goes behind in Gen Ops. So let's set the foundation and, talk more about Brandtech Plus, its specialization and any particular solution the company is offering. And alongside that, we would also like to know more about you, Shashank. How has your journey been till date? And, what exactly is your role at Brandtech Plus today?
Absolutely. So let me start with introducing my organization and then where do I fit in that puzzle. Brandtech Plus is a bunch of creative led AI first driven set of bunch of people there. They are experts in getting you the most best quality output based on the most efficient route that we can find. Think about it. You have a bunch of people sitting across the world, no matter where they are. They are geo agnostic. You have a task to deliver and they'll find the best way to do this. Now, how do I fit into this ecosystem? My role here is to look after intelligent process automation by design. So what we do there, let me break that down a bit for audience here for this discussion. Imagine you have a whole bunch of process, right? The world is talking about Gen AI. They're talking about how we can create things with ease using AI. But there's also other aspect of the business when you are in this field, right? And that's how you run your business behind the scene. That's where the Gen Ops or the intelligent ops steps in. So my role here is to balance that for the organization. So while my team and the wonderful talent that we have delivers the best quality for their customers, we behind the scene try to work how we can make their lives even more simpler using agentic AI or automation in place.
Thank you for that overview, Shashank, and also letting us understand about your role and leadership today at Brandtech. And we're always interested to understand not just what an organization does, but also the vision and expertise that drives its success. And I think your brief introduction gives a very clear picture of the company's core strengths, problem it is solving, and the value it is creating within the industry.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that foundation set in place, Shashank, now the core friction for enterprises isn't replacing one model with another. I think that part is relatively easy. The real
Yeah.
challenge lies in aligning AI behavior across regions with different regulatory demands or, functions with different risk appetites and use cases that span from internal tooling to public facing co-pilots. And data inputs are constantly shifting, personas are
hmm
evolving, regulatory environments are changing. So I think teams are under a lot of pressure to, give the best of those AI features without compromising on the quality or compliance. So this transition that we discussed in the introduction, the shift from Gen AI to Gen Ops, what does it actually mean in the business context, Shashank?
Oh, absolutely. Let me segue from statement that I just made earlier, right? When AI started, let's go back a little bit. AI has been with us since many years. but not many people know about it, read about it in that sense, right? You had Alan Turing making machine learning models. It was highly mathematics oriented. From there to the point where it's become mainstream after OpenAI started building ChatGPT, right? It's been a journey. Now, the first thing people knew when AI started becoming mainstream was that AI can create things. And that's generative AI, right? You train the model, you have a base LLM, it gives you a whole bunch of variables that you can control and outputs you can create. Think about images that you're creating today. You're creating videos. There are models across doing it, Sora doing it, Kling doing it. There's so many of them. All of that is Gen AI. Now it creates things. Now, how do we change a move away from this? Where do we see the next big shift happening? That's actually behind in the operation. Operations, by definition, need to be a bit more deterministic. AI is a probabilistic model. So having that balance or deploying a probabilistic model in a space where you can use that for your business operations, that's GenOps. And you wouldn't believe there's significant opportunities and gains to be had if someone decides to do this successfully. Yes, there are regulations you need to be careful of. Some of them old, some of them new, some of them coming our way already. You would have heard about the recent DPDA act that's coming out here in India. Similarly, you have GDPR, you have UO compliances. So there are those aspects that you have to bear in mind. What I would probably state is if somebody is delving into GenOps or intelligent operations, the first thing that you need to be careful about is building an infrastructure that allows you to safeguard your organization and ensure your compliances are handled with care. So it's very important to do that in this environment. But the gains, if you manage to do that, are significantly high. Potential gains are significantly high if you do the right balance.
Definitely, Shashank. And I think what you highlighted was so important, considering that, a lot of organizations today are just racing to adopt these new developments and solutions, but tend to forget to unlock its true potential and measure its ROI. And
Right.
I think this shift, hopefully, I think organizations will be able to achieve that pretty much soon and, ensure and build a competitive advantage that way.
Absolutely. We are already seeing instances of this happening, right? Take Zomato. They
Yeah.
recently deployed an AI agent that takes care of their customer services. It's
Yeah.
already starting to happen. Now, this is happening in places where the business can see real savings, real cost savings. So there is one aspect, your Gen AI, that gets you the money. And then
Right.
you have your intelligent ops or GenOps that saves you the money. And this will soon spread across the globe. You just need the right SMEs to be part of this. You need patience, and I'll probably speak a little bit about that in our section later. You need patience, you need SMEs to support you, and you need, most importantly, organizations to believe that this is possible.
True. And, just like you mentioned, according to a report from Goldman Sachs, AI could boost global labor productivity by more than 1% per year and, attract increasing investments. Meanwhile, while active in a far narrower field than an all-pervasive AI, RPA, robotic process automation, is set to exceed $14 billion by 2029. Now, if you talk
Right.
about AI and RPA, these are two independent technologies and have redefined what's achievable in process excellence across enterprises. Now, there are a lot of discussions of business process automation, and sometimes these discussions can be drawn into an AI versus RPA side by side comparison. But I think when these two technologies are combined together, I think you tend to unlock a different level of efficiency. And my next question is around those lines that, why this combination of AI and RPA is getting a lot of hype lately and why it is becoming such a powerful force for enterprise operations.
Oh, I can probably speak a lot about this already. So AI, being probabilistic in nature, can give you accuracy to a certain extent. Like, let's look at the tests that you see on the LLMs today. OpenAI's 5.5 perhaps scores slightly higher compared to Claude in certain aspects. Like Claude scores slightly higher. There are scores that it evaluates mathematical reasoning, human tests, coding skills, etc. But they are still not 100% there. Now, for businesses, especially in business process automations and even in certain aspects of your day-to-day life, right? You need certain amount of deterministic answer. You cannot get that from AI just yet. We haven't yet reached a general AGI level of intelligence with AI. We're getting there. Probably in a few years' time, you would be surprised to where we have already hit with AI. And that's why it's very important to be on the bus today. But that's where RPA steps in. RPA has been tried, tested, has shown you results over so many years already. So, to simply put, when I look at this combination, I have three things that I believe this combination helps in. One, security. There are places where your businesses, so for that, and these are the real problems, not the statements, but in real world, there are places where you would not entrust in AI to do certain activity. But you have means to automate that. RPA is one such mean to do it. That's where deploying an AI and RPA helps you. That's one. Second is simple fear. People are still, many places are still getting or adapting to artificial intelligence just yet. And having a sound balance between an RPA and AI helps them ease those fears, helps them adopt this much more faster. Slowly and steadily, they become believers, and then you see the shift happening over to AI. So that's where I believe that this combination helps. Thirdly, like I said, the differences between probabilistic and deterministic. Let's say you are trying to automate a process for finance. Now, you would not entrust probabilistic AI to give you numbers, would you? Now, imagine a world where it hallucinates on a payment to a vendor. That's very risky. Now, those are the places where you would intersperse RPA in it because there is so much that can go wrong with it. RPA is purely a workflow design. It's designed by logic, it's designed by binary yes and no's roots. And using that in conjunction with AI makes it powerhouse. So now imagine this infrastructure that you can build today. You can have AI as your brain, as your center. Let's say you prepare an AI agent that can process multiple activities. Let's say 10, 15 finance activities. It can look after journal entries. It can look after tallying. It can look after reconciliation. It can look after posting, chasing. So now your AI becomes your engine that does the thinking and alerting or sending events over to different systems. Some of these systems can be executed by means of integrating automated workflows. Some of them can be executed with RPA, getting an event to go about doing an activity. RPA can do the activities using integration or even mimic a user interface. And that's the reason why, if somebody can master this, and that's the skill, if somebody can master this and deploy these combinations for their business, you are actually entering or developing powerful engine that can drive your organization far ahead till such time we hit AGI. And that's why the reason I'm a true believer in these combinations. They supplement each other. They're significantly powerful. They're not retiring each other. AI is not retiring RPA, let me put it that way. RPA is here, so is AI. It's just a matter of time before AGI becomes mainstream and is able to perform the same level of accuracy as an RPA. Who knows? Probably RPA organizations will pivot, and that pivoting might result in them becoming AGI drivers. That is a possibility you can enter in.
Definitely, Shashank. And yes, the combination of AI and RPA is transforming automation into something far more intelligent, adaptive, and capable of driving business outcomes at scale. And what's particularly interesting is that RPA, it excels at executing structured or rule-based processes, while AI brings the ability to understand context and interpret unstructured data and learn from patterns and supports more informed and data driven decision making. So I think together they are empowering enterprises to achieve and automate end to end workflows that were previously considered too complex or dynamic for automation.
True. Yes.
Right. And I think when we talk about today's competitive business landscape, I think enterprises across industries are constantly seeking ways to improve performance and while cutting down on their costs and wastage. And again, operational efficiency has emerged as a very crucial concept that helps businesses achieve this balance. So when we talk about Gen AI or even overall AI, I would say, where are organizations are seeing the most immediate and measurable impact? Probably it could be cost savings, productivity, or operational efficiency, or any such area which you feel are missing in the question.
That's a good one. Top answer. Organizations are seeing it across the spectrum so long they're fearless to try this out. Fearless, obviously, but in a secured manner, right? They should go for it. They should try it. This is the time where you experiment, and this is the time where you can get ahead of the curve. In my experience and what I've been seeing, you naturally are seeing benefits when it comes to Gen AI. If you are smart with your prompt engineering, if you know how to manage tokens and its consumption, the gains are significant. Like copywriters, for instance, can create their first draft very swiftly. What otherwise used to take hours and hours of thinking and thought process can be generated in minutes. You can easily surpass 30 to 40% efficiencies just by using generative AI technologies. And that's just in the production space. Coming to business processes, there are studies that will tell you that organizations can see anywhere between 30 to 60%. We are seeing something similar already in the processes that we automate. There are significant gains. You can easily see efficiencies of, reduction in the time that it used to take a process to be executed by almost 75 to 80%, the turnaround time itself, cycle time itself. So there are significant gains. Your ROIs are getting crunched significantly. The time it takes to get back your investments reducing. And we are seeing that all across. There is, I think, I believe a study that was published, and it was published by McKinsey a while ago, where it said that if you or if an organization manages to deploy AI and automation in some of the core departments, it immediately gets its shareholders significant gains. What you originally will start off as a cost saving exercise is just not a cost saving exercise anymore. It actually gets you a few more things that you did not think about. It gives you higher level of compliances, reduced risk of compliances, higher data accuracies, speed. It frees your staff to be doing what they really need to do, which is thinking critically. It can reduce your processing time. Like I said, we've observed that almost 75% of can give you return on investment to over 146, 150%, in fact. So that's the level of gains that you stand to get if you smartly deploy AI and automation in your business. And eventually, that gains do trickle down to your customers. They see the benefit as well. They will see how competitive that your product is already in the market, how good the product is in the market. Your qualities will improve, if not at least remain the same, but your effort to get at that point gets significantly improved. And that's the benefit of doing this right. Even if it costs you a few £100 or so to get your infrastructure in, I would say you get onto the bus today before you miss it, because this will only get even more interesting and better in the days to come.
I agree with you, Shashank. And AI, I think it is no longer confined to just experimentation or pilot projects now. I think it's increasingly being reflected in tangible business outcomes. And
Yes.
again, enterprises are now being able to identify those specific areas where they need automation or intelligent decision making. And all of this is helping them have measurable returns, whether through reduced operational cost or improved efficiency or even faster service delivery. And I think one important aspect here is that the gains, the enterprises that achieve these gains, they often compound over time. Now, for example, a productivity improvement in one function can create ripple effects across departments, and then leading to greater efficiency throughout the organization. So
Mhm.
it also highlights the importance of prioritizing the use cases, because
Mhm.
that demonstrates quick wins but can also scale to create long-term business value.
So, yes,
Yeah.
um, you are right. The way one would approach, or the way I like to approach it, is whenever you have certain activities that you deem are possible to be automated or you can deploy AI in it. One, your gut, your immediate inclination towards deploying an AI would ask you to jump straight into it and execute it. But one should not do that. They should be pragmatic about it. You and your team that is building these solutions are still limited as resources, right? They're not unlimited. Companies not hiring unlimited of them. So you need to be careful of what you choose and how you choose. And you have to do a thorough analysis. Look at what benefit you stand to gain. Look at the 15 other items that's there in your list that needs to be automated or deploying an AI on, and see what intrinsic value or tangible value, it can get back to the business. In fact, tangible and intangible both. That's
Right.
fair enough.
Yeah.
But if I see something that's going to save the company, let's say, hypothetically saying $1 million, I would prioritize that over something that perhaps saves 100K or so. So you have to be pragmatic. You have to do your research thoroughly.
Right.
Look at the cycle time, look at the throughputs, look at the quality. That's very important. And then look at what you stand to gain. And then
Right.
take a call based on weighted averages where you want to go.
true, Shashank. And alongside that, I think a core challenge, I would say that specifically for the IT leaders is, apart from prioritizing the use cases and, understanding which use case demands what kind of automation or intelligent decision making, the another challenge is finding the right balance between machine autonomy and human control. For example, AI, it can automatically rebalance workloads across clusters and data centers to improve performance and utilization. But on the other hand, executives often have clear concerns about such autonomy. So how do you think that enterprises can, balance this autonomous operations and human oversight and governance?
All right. There's a thin balance actually that you need to maintain here. AI is still not at a level where I can deem it's going to fully replace a human mind. It can do the best it can based on the trained model that you are using as base, which means you still need human control and governance. More importantly, the governance side. So what I would recommend is if you are somebody who is deploying this mix or deploying this architecture for your organization, look at places that triggers the final signal to execute something, especially if you're dealing in your core functions of your organization. Look at the places where it triggers a significant event, an approval, and a trigger to execute something, for instance, a trigger to fix something, for instance. I'm not saying you fix it, and I'm not saying you execute it, but the triggers should be controlled by a human in the loop some point. Now, how many triggers? That's totally dependent on your process and totally dependent on what you're trying to achieve. You can have one triggers, you can have 10 triggers. It totally depends on what you're trying to achieve and how your organization is structured. But controlling these gates, I like to put it like that, like these are gates that your AI has to pass through to reach its destination. So controlling these gates is where you would plug in the human in the loop, at least for now. And to be very honest, at this stage, leaving AI to do all of it is pretty risky in itself. I'm sure you would have heard about OpenClaw, and in that case, even Maltbook, for instance. These are live examples of what can happen when you let AI do everything for you. Maltbook, for instance, is a social media networking site for AI. Who could have imagined there are AI agents talking to AI agents about what their life looks like, what their day to day looks like? And that's the world that you will enter in if you have AI on the loose. It's pretty risky. We have seen instances of disks being wiped out. We have seen instances of data being corrupted accidentally or just because AI thought it was the right solution. Now, AI is not human still. If AI deems wiping your disk out saves you the risk of getting exposed in the data breach, it will do that. But that's not what you wanted. You wanted security in the first place. And therefore, at this point in time, I would say control the gates, control where your final triggers go out to the world, or you want your activities to trigger from. Anything massive should have a human element inside this. We all do that, even in our organization, even in Brandtech Plus. We do that. We control each and every gates that are important to us with a human. Of course, now the effort that the person had to expense, which let's say had to do 100 steps before, suddenly has to do 2 or 3 steps. And that's the gain. That's the benefit you get out of it. While you ensure your governance and security is in order, while you ensure that you don't have any untoward incident with your AI.
I very well liked your response, Shashank. And I mean, yes, autonomous AI can significantly improve, the speed, efficiency, and decision making. But again, enterprises cannot afford to treat governance as an afterthought. And human oversight, of course, remains essential for ensuring accountability, ethical decision making, and, managing those unforeseen risks. And I think as AI systems become more sophisticated and capable, enterprise will need to establish some clear guidelines and ensure transparency mechanisms that allow humans to remain in control without slowing down innovation. And I think
Yes.
ultimately the most successful enterprises will be those who will, maintain that fine balance of AI and human expertise, and rather than keeping them as competing ones. Great. Having said that, Shashank, now, of course, when we discussed about human oversight and how generative AI is now shifting to GenOps, but despite the excitement around generative AI or overall scaling AI technologies, scaling them again, continues to be the most daunting challenge for most organizations. I came across a report which highlighted that 50% of organizations conclude the cost of implementing, maintaining, and supporting AI tools is the biggest roadblock, particularly in terms of macroeconomic uncertainty. So, what are certain challenges organizations typically face when trying to integrate AI into their existing operational environments, and probably certain ways that they can tackle them?
Surely, that's a very good question there. So, money is a limited resource across, no matter where you are, whether you're in India, whether you're in the US, whether you're in the UK, or you're working for your government or you're working in an organization, we all deal with budgets. And that's why we frame that, right? It's a budget. It's not the whole, it's the budget. So, there is an element, there is, in fact, that thin line that the organization needs to figure out between experimenting with the new age tools and technology and solutions that's coming their way, and then figuring out where they really scale up their investments. It's not a one fit answer for everything or everybody here, right? You have to find that as an organization. It is your duty as a leader. It's your duty to figure out where you invest or where you go about pumping more funds, where you go about reserving some funds for experimentation. It's one of the key challenges. That's not all. Now, where does this become a problem? Where you see a couple of well, there are a couple of reasons here. One, probably your POCs, your implementations are not satisfactory enough, or you haven't done sufficient level of exercise, showcase to show to the business that this works, and then therefore you have to repeat it. You are experimenting a lot, and you haven't made up your mind on where you want to go. You do end up expensing money, and that's where you would always see that hurdle. But there are other challenges too, besides the money. The other challenges are people and mindsets. In this age, I think the key skill that somebody can have is being agile. You need to pivot. It's changing too fast. And therefore, you need to keep yourself up speed at every possible moment that you can. So getting that mind shift is very important in an organization. You still have people who have perhaps seen an era of computer only coming their way after 20 years, right? They are skilled people. They are experienced, but they need certain level of convincing. They probably would not look at the technology as the same way a Gen Alpha person. They would look at it very differently. So the bridge there is very important. The third thing that often is a hurdle is your automation and AI is going to be only as good as the data you feed and the clarity in processes that you know. If you do not have both of these, no matter the level of automation and AI that you deploy, it will fail. You will struggle. It will take you more time than it would otherwise to achieve the same result had you got these inputs clear. That's the reality. The first thing that somebody needs to do is sit down and understand what they're playing with before they even deploy this. So in my experience, the way organizations can look at, the way we look at it, we have tried and tested many, we still do. But where we see immediate gains or where we already see promising results, let me put it that way, forget the gains. Wherever we see promising results, we scale up step by step, incrementally, but we reserve certain portion of our funds, let's say 10, 15% of the funds to experimentation. We want people who enjoy doing this, right? And we have people who enjoy doing this. They play with this in and out. And incrementally, we scale up with them. Mind shift, it's going to take a while. Trust me. It doesn't happen overnight. It can take you months. It can take you a couple of years because you're dealing with people at the end of the day and you have to win over them. You have to gain the trust. There is no forcing this down. Even though we see immediate opportunities, you simply cannot force a change down. You have to change manage. There is a tact and ensuring you go through that. Data and processes, I cannot emphasize how important it is to get that fixed before you enter in any form of AI and automation deployment. Whatever you feed AI, it will multiply that tenfolds and give you out as an output. It doesn't really understand your brain immediately the way you would understand your brain. It doesn't have a heart. It has nervous systems. It has LLMs. It has knowledge banks. It doesn't have a heart. So it doesn't really understand the fear of getting this wrong. It will simply execute what you feed. And for me, these three containers are very important. Understand the funds you have and therefore appropriate the funds to the right tools. Do not over experiment. If you would like to experiment multiple tools, deploy portions of it, bring on board experts. So if you have a creative tool you want to play with, get a creative person in. If you have a finance process to automate, get an SME in finance and get an automation person who can work together to discuss what's the best route, plan it. You wouldn't believe that more than 70 to 80% of the time you would actually spend up doing is planning things. Once you plan that right, the execution and where we have achieved AI solutioning at right now makes it super easy to get that in order. The execution is not a problem at all, but it is the planning, change management, the people alignment, the SME buy-ins that eats away a lot of time. That should be a very key focus. It's often not a topic that people would discuss. You would hear many of them discussing There's a new tool coming out. There is an upgrade coming in. We need to modify or get in more tech stack inside it. Yes, those are your enablers. At the end of the day, these hard facts remain the same. Money, people, data, and process. These for me are the three containers an organization should focus on if they are on this journey to deploy.
I agree with you, Shashank. And, in a recent MIT study on the state of AI in business, roughly 95% of enterprise generative AI pilots failed to deliver meaningful revenue impact. So, overall, everybody said that this is not a technology problem, it's a mindset problem because most organizations are still approaching AI like traditional software. They expect precision, they expect the same output every time. But when it varies, they get frustrated. So, and when it requires refinement, they disengage. So, this is the AI tool user mindset and not the real
The
AI
mindset.
mindset. Yeah, and that is different again.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And
And
overall,
to be very honest, that's often very counterproductive. You end up building solutions that
hmm,
might not even scale up and not even go beyond your POCs. This is the very reason why that happens, because you're in such a hurry to prove. You're in such a hurry to make somebody believe that you will often skip and give them the most minimal that you need to just to get them to believe and get this deployed and out of the way. Sometimes it drags so much that you get fatigued and you would want to do it. Do not do that. This takes time. You have to work with your organization as a leader. It would be their jobs to ensure they work with the organization leadership and align them on this journey. It's a journey. It is not a sprint. It's not a 100-meter race. It's a journey. Everybody has to go through it. Look at how AI started and look at how much time it took to reach this point. It was a journey. Had somebody thought about, or let's say, had Alan Turing thought about, hey, I would not do this. I just want to prove one formula. I want to prove one theorem, and that's it. He would not have reached this. It's a journey he went through. And because of that, this is where we are. So it's a
hmm,
journey. As a leader, it's their responsibilities to align the leadership globally to ensure they work and walk with them on this journey. It's not split.
Yes, yes, Shashank. And I think, to conclude our conversation today, that, AI is not just a plug and play productivity hack. It's important that enterprise treat it as a discipline that should be developed and a skill set that should be fine-tuned. And I think the companies seeing results are not the ones with the biggest AI budgets, but they are the ones building human AI loops, encouraging experimentation and treating progress as a part of their culture and a competitive advantage. Well,
Yes,
thank you so
absolutely.
much, Shashank, for, your insights today and your time and effort to be on a podcast and giving us, insights around generative AI operations. And in order, I think the next wave of AI will be about, how enterprises can deliver reliably, adapt quickly, and govern responsibly. And with that said, I think generative AI operations is the operating model that will make that possible. So I think thank you for your insights, Shashank. I think it was a very interesting conversation and we touched on some really important aspects. And yeah, it was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you so much for that, Priya. Who knows, probably in 5 years' time, you would be speaking to an AI agent that is Shashank.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for having me.
True. Thank you so much, Shashank. So, this is for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion around how automation is powering end-to-end business operations. And again, how it's important that we shift from merely adopting generative AI to ensuring how we are operationalizing and scaling it. Again, keeping in mind that an important mind shift is very much required to ensure that we have scalable access to AI and we are effectively deploying it. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes, and you can view all our previous episodes on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.